Shoutouts to my darling boyfriend Draconic, he's the one who suggested I play PowerDrome on the PlayStation 2, so I hope you enjoy. PowerDrome on the PlayStation 2 is a reimagining of a 1988 futuristic racer of the same name. The original was as much a simulator as a racing game, and contemporary outlets have nothing short of thorough disdain for its complex controls and high learning curve. At the time of release, though, it was praised for its revolutionary smooth 3D graphics, its detail, and creativity. The simulation aspects are remarkable, with the player being forced to start the engine, account for weather, atmosphere, gas filters, which is very much unlike the PS2 game. The PS2 game, while carrying on the original's legacy in its dazzling visuals, is much more arcadey in focus, probably to increase the chances of commercial success. As to the legacy of the PS2 game, well, it was pretty much dead on arrival. It was welcomed with middling reviews, poor sales, and didn't attract many fans. It's one of the cheapest PS2 games you can buy, anyone who gives it a shot nowadays is quick to dismiss it, and it's hard to find many good videos. If I had to guess, the game's lackluster performance is at least in part owed to its name and box art. For real, this is some of the worst box art. The woman on the front looks discomforted or bored. You'd be forgiven for thinking the game had something to do with motorbikes, and the stark orange-yellow style of the game's menus is utterly missing. At least the PAL box art is more artistically coherent, even if it's no masterpiece. Overall, PowerDrome was forgotten and unloved, which leaves me in an exceptionally romantic position to sing its praises. It's rare that I start with the presentation, but PowerDrome is gorgeous, atmospheric, and hypnotizing. The PC and Xbox ports are the most entrancing, but the PS2 version is no slouch either, as you're seeing now. There's a beautiful opening video that still holds up, and a really sleek menu with a bold color scheme too, but they're not the real winners here. The tracks in PowerDrome are a sight to behold. There isn't much in the way of lore or story building outside of brief snippets in the menus, but that didn't stop me from getting absorbed into the environment anyway. The locations feel real. The high-speed, lovingly detailed alien architecture and bold, vibrant colors put me in an absolute trance. It isn't often I'm completely dazed by a game's visual witchery alone, so it's good that PowerDrome is the whole package. It isn't just the colors, the detail, or the speed that are so rapturous, but all of those in harmony with the setting and soundtrack. You may not learn much about the tracks or the planets and countries where they reside, but the setting used my own imagination against me. I spent just as long imagining what the cultures and currencies and societies of these places must be like as I did thinking about the next turn. The characters, as little as we know about them, are also bursting with personality and charming voice lines and taunts, some of which seem to be references to F-Zero. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but I was love-stricken, and I'd kill for an expanded universe novel that details the inner workings of this universe and its characters, or even a soundtrack rip. Who knew that vague, colorful, and atmospheric were such a powerful combination? PowerDrome is a racing game, no surprise there. You pick a racer, paying mind to their stats of course, and drive. Quite a few systems govern the gameplay, and I'll do my best to detail them appropriately. Firstly, like many futuristic racers, PowerDrome is boost heavy. You can store up to 3 boosts, and choosing when to use them and why is the first real strategic barrier. Is it best to save them all toward the end of the lap, chain the boosts together over this long straight stretch to pull ahead, or use them to recover from bad turns? You also must be careful not to boost while you're in low gear, sideways, or otherwise in an awkward position, or you risk wasting your boost trying to fight against the terrain. Each boost is precious. The enemies are pretty good at using their own boosts, and they won't be merciful. They know how to save them for the appropriate stretches of track, and it's not uncommon to wind up in a screaming pack of racers, all boosting like mad. This would be a fine blueprint for a simple racer on its own, but you have to get that boost somehow. Rather than opt for recharge pads or pickups, PowerDrome argues that your boosts should be acquired through your racing skill. A blue meter gradually fills up as you drive, and when it's full, you're afforded a boost. The catch is that if you hit a wall, another racer, or bump the track, your meter cancels and you have to rebuild it from scratch. I think this design decision is brilliant. It offers such meat to the gameplay, because you're trying harder than ever to glide perfectly through turns, just fast enough to keep up, but not so fast you bump someone or something. It makes you consider carefully which turns you're best at, and which stretches are the easiest to build boost on, so you can plan a strategy around it. And finally, if you get good enough at a track, you won't be touching any walls at all, and you'll boost the whole way from start to finish as a well-deserved reward. To add a cherry atop the meat sundae, you can also spend your stored boost to heal your vehicle. Just like boosting though, there's a catch. Healing slows you down immensely, so you have to strategically use it when you can afford to hit the brakes. Maybe while you're taking a particularly fast turn, or when you've just pulled ahead of the pack, or during a tight corridor or lull in the track. It just adds another layer of consideration and thoughtfulness. Then there's the meta design to consider. The variety in race types isn't spectacular, but I would like to give a shout out to the one-on-one races which had my heart beating out of my chest almost every time, as I narrowly won by 1/16th of a second. The characters, as promised, also control quite differently from one another, enough to really shake me up when I did decide to experiment with that. Even the small details are thoughtfully communicated. You barely even need a HUD, because the musical hum of the boost meter and the scream of your engine tell you everything you need to know about the state of your vehicle and its current gear. If you can't tell, I think the design rocks, and I was glued to the screen for hours straight. I couldn't be much more grateful that Draconic wanted me to give this a spin. I kinda love PowerDrome, you know? And it's exciting being in this situation so often, digging up old games that are rarely thought of and giving them their dance in the daylight. If anyone wants to see the game at its most beautiful, running in 60 FPS from the bumper camera on PC, I've put a link to a wonderful video of exactly that in the description. I love you, Draconic. Thanks for picking this one out. I hope it was as unique and effortlessly amorous as you're used to. Talk to you all soon.